If you want to have financial freedom, well, then how are you going to get there? The answer is you have to have financial discipline. And same thing with more free time. If you want to have more free time, then you have to have a more disciplined time management schedule. And you have to have discipline in your life to say no to the things that aren't actually moving you towards whatever goals you have. So, you have to have the discipline to not click the next YouTube video that springs up when you get done watching one dumb video that you shouldn't have watched, and then it presents you with 6 more. Don't click on those. Go and do something else and do something productive. One of the things you were just talking about is sleeping in the morning, right? It seems like sleeping in the morning is a form of freedom because, hey, I don't have to do anything. I'm just going to sleep in. But the reality is when you sleep in, now you don't get things done. And now those things that you were supposed to do aren't done. And now the next day you have to wake up early and get them done, not because you want to, but because you have to. So you've become a slave to the fact that you didn't have discipline. So if you actually want to have freedom in your life, you have to implement discipline on yourself. I was one of those kids that I was running around the woods, taking every stick I could find and pretending it was a machine gun. And at some point, probably around the age of 7 or 8, I realized that you could actually go and have a job where they'd give you a real machine gun. And I said to myself, I can get paid for this. So eventually figured out what the SEAL teams were. I liked being in the water, and the SEAL teams were obviously the maritime component of special operations, and so it seemed like the place to go, and that's where I ended up. A lot of times when people think of the training in the SEAL teams, they think of the training that you see on TV, which is, the guys carrying the boats on their head and carrying the logs around, and that's what a lot of people talk about, but that actually is just the beginning of your career. And when you're in the SEAL teams, no one actually talks about that, and no one actually cares because all of us have been through it. And you don't actually learn anything about being a SEAL in that initial phase of training. And so, yeah, you go through that training, a bunch of people quit, that's cool. But what I really liked about it was the tactics of when you're actually a commando and you're maneuvering elements on the battlefield and you're closing with and destroying the enemy, or you're training to be able to do that. That's a fantastic job. It's fun, it changes all the time, it's dynamic, and yeah, it's really hard to find a replacement for that in the civilian sector. What you really learn in the SEAL teams is that what you have to do is you have to be able to think. You have to be able to problem solve, and you have to be able to look at complex problems, simplify them, and then implement solutions to them. And that's what comes a little later once you have that base. But it's a little bit different from what people think, because a lot of times people think that the military everything is super rigid and structured, and that all you're doing is getting orders from above you in the chain of command and you're executing those orders. That's actually not true at all. And what you're really doing in the military is you're looking at complex problems on the battlefield, and you're coming up with a solution with your team on how to get those problems solved. And that's why I think that part of the military, even though it's not well known, it does translate great into the civilian sector, because this is what business people, and now obviously I work with businesses all the time, and that's what the businesses are doing. They're looking at these problems that they have in whatever industry they're in, and they're trying to find out solutions so they can execute them quickly and efficiently. You definitely have to be humble. And when you show up in the SEAL teams, and when I showed up in the SEAL teams as a new guy, like I said, even though I'd been through this tough training, you better be humble when you show up in the SEAL teams, because you don't know anything. And if you think you know something, you're gonna find out really quickly that you don't. And so it's actually easy, because if you're humble and you have an open mind and you're willing to listen, the guys are willing to teach you, and it's fundamental things that you can learn pretty quickly. But anybody that comes in that's arrogant, that thinks they know everything, they're going to have problems. And again, that's the same thing you see in the business world. When we work with companies where the company that is actually asking us to come in, and maybe the CEO is saying, hey, we want you to come and help us. That company, they're already doing well. They're already being successful. And their attitude is, hey, we need help. We want to get better. We want to be more successful. And those companies, they ramp up really quickly, and we have a great time working with them. Sometimes we work with companies where, let's say we get brought in by the board, brings us in because the company's not doing well. Well, right off the bat, the company's not doing well, and they don't think they need any help. And so it's the opposite effect. They're saying, well, we don't need any help. We don't need you guys here. And the fact of the matter is, they need us more than the other folks do. But the reason that they need help is the reason we're there in the first place. Is the reason they're not doing well. because they're not looking at themselves every day humbly and saying, what can we do better? How can we improve? How can we adjust right now and turn our game around or improve our game so that we can get better in the market? If you and I are working together and I'm the boss and I have a big ego and I think I'm better than you and you come to me with an idea, I immediately shut you out. Well, what if your plan was a better plan? Or what if you had some piece of knowledge that made sense for a particular operation, but my ego is too big to listen to you? Well, now we go out and we put lives at risk and possibly lose lives because my ego is too big. Same thing you could say about the enemy, right? If I don't think the enemy is any good, the enemy's no good, they don't train hard, and they're not prepared for the big tough SEALs. Well, if you have that attitude, guess what? Maybe those guys are training harder. And if you start cutting corners in your training, you're going to get caught. And obviously, it's the same thing in the business world. When a company's doing well, if the company stays humble while they're doing well, they're still looking for how they can improve. They're still looking for things that they can do better, and they will stay on top. But the minute a company says, that's right, we're the best, and no one else even stands a chance, well, guess what? Those people down there on the bottom, they're hungry, and they're going to come and get them. I know that your alarm clock is, your most hated object in your bedroom. I get that. But here's the deal with getting up early in the morning. When you get up early in the morning, if you can get up before the rest of the world is awake, right? Before the enemy's awake, before the rest of the world is awake, you can get so much done. You're so much more productive without your phone going off, without people sending you emails and texting you or calling you. And you wake up in the morning, there's just quiet, and you can get things done. And you should do things, and I do things in the morning that I know they're a priority for my life, but maybe they're not a priority for that day, right? So, like for instance, working out. Working out, you got to work out every day. You got to stay in shape. If you don't stay in shape, you die, right? So you got to stay in shape. But working out might not be a priority for every single day because you've got things going on in your business world and with your family and all that. So guess what? It's a priority for my life. So I do it in the morning before my day even starts. So I can still handle the priorities for the day, but I got my workout done. So long term, I look up in a year and I'm not out of shape and breathing hard when I go up the stairs because I maintain that discipline on a daily basis. So I think getting up early, I think doing some kind of exercise every day, I don't care what it is. You just have to do something. You have to do something physical. It's scientifically proven with not only bro science, but also real science that waking up early or that doing physical exercise every day, it tunes your mind, it puts more oxygen in your blood, in your brain. It is absolutely makes you think more clearly. So waking up early, working out every day, if you start with those two kind of cornerstones, and then the other thing is, figure out what you're going to do during the day. Don't go to bed without a plan of how you're going to handle the next day. I execute the schedule, and that's what you need to do. Now, you actually said that my time is very structured, and it's actually a little bit not true. Parts of my day are very structured. Parts of my day are very disciplined, which gives me freedom in other parts of the day. And as a matter of fact, sometimes people will get, okay, I'm gonna run a disciplined time management schedule. So they schedule every single minute of the day. And I don't recommend that. Just like I wouldn't recommend conducting a SEAL operation where your timeline is so tight that there's no room for error, because that's not a possibility. You're gonna have errors, things are gonna go wrong, vehicles are gonna break, boats are gonna break, people are gonna get lost, you're gonna take a wrong turn, and so you're gonna need extra time. And it's the same thing with your day. If you schedule, 16 hours of your day, you're not gonna hit all your targets. But if you look at your work day and you've got an 8-hour work day where you're gonna be in your office, and you schedule 4 or 5 of those hours, and you have 3 hours that you're gonna fill in, and you're gonna put important things into those as they come up, that is a much better way to be successful with running a time management on your life. And so I only schedule hardcore like 4 hours a day. The other hours I'm picking up, I'm getting phone calls, I'm adapting and maneuvering on other things that need to be executed on. But what is important? Those 4 hours, they get done. They get done. And that's the difference between finishing writing a book and not finishing writing a book. Because, when I write a book, I write 1,000 words a day. It takes me about an hour. That's what I do. I write 1,000 words a day. And in 30 days, you got 30,000 words. And in 60 days, you got 60,000 words. And in 90 days, you got 90,000 words, and that's a book. That's 3 months. And it took you an hour a day. And that's exactly what I did with the books that I've written. And it's the same thing with physical fitness. You don't get in amazing shape in this short amount of time, but you get in amazing shape in a short amount of time, day after day after day after And that's where discipline comes in on both those subjects. If you want to wake up early in the morning, go to bed earlier. Well, that's real simple to say, but it's hard to do. It's hard to do, number one, when you're looking at your phone. It's hard to do when you're staring at your computer screen. It's hard to do when you're watching TV. Those things are meant, they're designed to make you keep looking at them. And so you do. So what you need to do is turn those things off and try and go to bed. Now, the first night, you're going to have a hard time going to sleep. What you do is the next morning, you wake up early anyways.